Okay, so good day, everyone, especially Miss Pasaral. Today, we will tackle historical sources from the Spanish period, and we will be focusing on their religious beliefs. And since we are dealing with more on religion and the area that it may encompass, we will mostly deal with gods and how they influence the customs and traditions that Filipinos typically had during this period. So pardon me if ever I won't be able to pronounce it well, but I would really try my best to pronounce it correctly jud sa mga terms and sana di niyo ma-judge. Okay. Okay, so first is about the beliefs regarding the dead. There were several beliefs on why people die way back then. So for the children or young ones who died because of a disease, it was believed that mangalos were the reason of their death daw. And it was said that they were goblins who eat the bowels of deceased young people. For the reason that children do not know that the corruption of humor ang maoy makapasakit sa isa ka tao daw. So these were believed by the pintados. So who are these pintados? So these were the tattooed natives that were specifically found most in the Visayas regions, like in the Panay Islands, Negros, Cebu, and Bohol. Okay. On the other hand, for those who were elderly, it was said that the spirits of the death wind or the hangin take their souls. So, ang hangin daw ang kumukuha sa mga souls ng mga elderly people. Okay. Now for people who are arayas, which is a certain group of villages before, okay, these souls would then be delivered to the Mount Mayas daw, where dito sila i-take place. For Iliguenas, which means people of the coast, meaning sa Iliguenas, that comprises more on the places of Cebu, Bantay, Iloilo, and Bohol, these would be turned over to Sisiburanan. However, sa Cebu, Bohol, and Bantay, Ranimo, mostly interpreted as kanang belief na nagtuo sila ni Sisiburanan. So who is this? Sisiburanan was said to be the deity that serves as the keeper of the souls of the dead, and that those souls who will be departing to afterlife would go to the kingdom of Kanitunituhan found at the underworld, or the what we call kasakitan, wherein this particular deity would be responsible of keeping those souls in that place. So these divisions of the world, kaning mga kasakitan, chuchu bells, I will just tackle it. I will discuss it later for further elaboration. Okay. Next, we have Sidapa, wherein she was one of the deities of the world Kamaritaan. She was also said to be the wife of Makaptan, the other principal deity, and also known as the god of sickness. So later, mag-discuss sa sagta ni Makaptan in the next discussion. And going back to Sidapa, she was said to be the goddess of death. However, can also be called as the goddess of life. So why man? Because she determines the measure of lifespan of a person through marking a very tall tree in the Mount Mayas daw. So this is the Mount Mayas. The picture that we can see here is the Mount Mayas daw, wherein every new child that was born, she measures their growth daw to determine their lifespan. And she uses that very tall tree in the Mount Mayas. However, it wasn't specified if the growth means the growth of the height of the person or the growth of the height of the tree. So as mentioned, she lives in the Mount Mayas, now called as the Mount Madyaas. So mo ni siya ang Mount Madyaas, the picture that we can see in the presentation. Since we are done discussing about how souls were taken, and we have a brief discussion about where souls would be placed, for now, we would discuss or focus on the Filipinos' belief concerning the destination of souls. But before we would proceed about the gods in this lesson, we would talk about the courts and divisions of the world according to the ancient Visayan pantheon. Okay, so in the first picture, we have the Kahilwayan or the sky world. The principal deity is Kaptan. He is also known as the supreme god of all. Next is the Kamaritaan or the earth world, and the principal deities are Sidapa and Makaptan. Lastly, we have the Kasakitan or the what we call the underworld, and the principal deity is Sumpoy, which would be mentioned later. So the order as to where redeemed souls of the living up to the dead go is from the Kamaritaan. Let me have a pointer here. Okay. So from the kamaritaan, wherein living pa ang soul. Next is to the kasakitan or the underworld or if sa in our own dialect, it is what we call as the purgatorio mo na siya. So next is to the kasakitan wherein it is already the soul of the dead, then proceeds sa kahilwayan. Okay. If unredeemed, it will only be up to it will only be up to the world of kasakitan. So why man? In order to know the reason, let us further discuss pano and let us first discuss on the gods and deities found in the world of kasakitan since this is the first world where souls of the dead go. Okay. It is believed that at death, all souls go directly to the infernal regions. The kasakitan, wherein either ma-redeem ka or ma-stay ang soul dito. And in order to redeem a soul, living relatives of a deceased person are said to offer maganitos to Pandage, who is the goddess of redemption and also the spokesman of Sidapa. Why is there a connection to the goddess found on the earth world man? Because the fate of a soul doesn't just solely depend on the maganitas given by the living, but also depend on the way that soul handled his or her life when he or she was still living. So what are these maganitas, by the way? These are sacrificial offerings that will serve as one of the bases if the souls shall be redeemed, and kasagaran is very expensive and gift like gold. If ever unacceptable ang soul for redemption, the soul shall remain in the said world in order to be a slave for sisiburanan and will also be served as the food for the two guards in the world. So I already mentioned sisiburanan, diba? Earlier, sisiburanan. And by this, she will be the one to decide if that soul will continue in the kasakitan or will move to kahilwayan. Okay. Next, we have Magwayan. So, Magwayan, wherein she is the goddess of the sea and death. Although some sources say nga boy siya, nasa nag-ingon nga she is a girl since she has a husband too. Then Magwayan is also the sibling of Makaptan and Sumpoy, and she is in charge of carrying the souls from the earth world to the underworld by rowing the barangay or balanday, so bangka, on the spiritual river called Lalangban. So ang ingon daw is that Magwayan is the courier of the souls to the kasakitan since connected ang kamaritaan to the kasakitan. Okay. Next, we have Sumpoy, wherein he is the principal deity of the world kasakitan, and that he is a sibling of Makaptan and Magwayan. He escorts the ferried souls to the kanitunituhan in order to meet si Siburanan. Silbi, si Sumpoy is the supervisor of the souls that were being ferried from the kamaritaan. Okay. The last deities that will be mentioned in this part are Simuran and Siginarugan. Okay, do you remember I mentioned earlier the two guards in this world when I tackled about Pandage? Okay, kanito sila. These two ferocious giant giant gate guardians of the kingdom Kanitunituhan in Kamaritaan were considered as the gods of hell. If ever the relatives failed to offer maganitos to save the soul of the departed, si Siburanan, the keeper of the souls, would then order the soul to be fed to Simuran and Siginarugan. Okay, muna siya ang katong the world where they guard the guardians of Kantunituan na siya. Okay, so to wrap it all, first, Magwayan delivers the souls to Kanitunituhan, where Sumpoy would wait on the other end in order to escort them all to Sisipuranan, the keeper of the souls. Then, Pandagi would try to communicate to the earth world through Sidapa in order to know how was that soul when he or she was still living, and also would wait for the Maganitos of the soul's living relatives. If ever the living relatives are successful in giving the sacrifices and offerings, then the soul would be redeemed and would go to the Kahilwayan. And if ever unsuccessful ang ilang offerings, ilang sacrifices, then the souls shall stay in kasakitan. So mo siya ang katong mag-hell na siya or like purgatory, and would become a slave to Sisiburanan and would later be fed to Simuran and Siginarugan. So mo to siya ang about sa destination of souls to. So di ba sa ato karon kay we first go to purgatory and then we go to langit. Here we go to purgatory or like purgatory slash hell. Silbi compact na sila. And then in this sa heaven mag critic if you had a good life dire sa ato ang ancient Asian Visayan na mga stories is that they first go to the purgatorio slash hell to know what your life was when you were living. Next, since we were talking about Maganitos, the sacrifices or offerings that the living relatives give to Pandage, okay, almost all of them may have no time to offer those all by themselves. So maybe others may be busy doing other things or doing errands, doing household chores. They don't have enough time to offer those Maganitos all by themselves. That is when Baylanes, what is Baylanes? So who are they? Okay, Baylanes, or commonly known in our own language as Babaylan, are termed as the Filipino shaman. Okay, these are priestesses who perform the honor of sacrifices. The sacrifices or offerings nga ang gi-offer sa babayran if mahatag na sa ilang offering, they are also called as bailings. So the thing and the person is called bailing. So walibog no mo to siya. Okay. Ang Maganitos, pwede sad ni ma-consider as bailings. So, pwede sad ni ma-consider as one rin. So, these bailings are then offered to the gods for specific purposes. So, since priestesses, so bayo jud sila no, natural, di ba? Kay priest, boy man, priestesses is girl. However, there are also men wherein it is necessary for them to dress and act accordingly like women. Like women should dapat ang ilang their hair, their attire, everything should be like women or like a woman, the image of a woman. Okay, they perform superstitions, lots, witchery, healing, divination, sorcery, and other ceremonies. They are also known as the channels of the spirits, and most of them also wear certain clothings and have many gold accessories sa ilang body, anywhere in their body, kay dapat rich ang i-offer to the gods mo. So they should also be presentable. For this matter, since we are talking about souls and spirits, they also invoke their ancestors and the dead, claiming to see them and receive answers to their questions. Okay. Now, we will proceed on the belief concerning the world, Nasad, talking about the earth world in this part. Okay, we have two commonly known gods or deities for the earth world. We have Makaptan and Lalahon. So first, we will discuss about Makaptan. Okay, Makaptan, this is the image, representation of Makaptan. As what I have mentioned earlier is the husband of Sidapa. So by this, Since si Dapa is a deity, isasad siya sa mga principal deities of Kamaritaan, si Makaptan. He is a sibling to Magwayan and Sumpoy, and compared sa iyang mga siblings, he is the only one nga does not live in the underworld kasi Magwayan and Sumpoy lives in the underworld. However, take note that even though he doesn't live in the underworld, he is evil. That is why he is called as the god of sickness. Why daw? Because he has hatred to the living people kaya he didn't got a chance to savor anything that you can eat or drink in the earth world daw. That is why he is allegedly the one who sent diseases and death to the living people. Okay, next we have Lalahon. She is living in Mount Canlaon, located at Negros No, and she is worshipped and known as the goddess of the good harvest. Although misinterpreted nga siya daw ang goddess of volcano, considering as to where she lives, and that due to the translation of the book of Lawarca, the one that these myths, mythologies are being written, that is why there is a misunderstanding and misinterpretation. So Lalahon gives good harvest to the people. However, okay, when bad mood si Miss Lalahon, no, so if bad mood siya, she sends locusts to the crops. This is the reason as to why the people near her home always gives offerings in order to refrain her from doing it so. Okay. The next in line is the topic about religious beliefs on burials. Okay, natives bury their dead in certain wooden coffins in their own houses, diba? Accompanied with them are the riches of the dead, like their golds and other luxurious and valuable stuff, no? Because it was believed that if they depart rich, they would be accepted in the other world, and the other way if poor. So balik kaayo sa the way we believe right now, no? Nga kailangan simple because it is said that we cannot bring our stuff if we go to the other side of life. Okay, way back before, padatuay jud ang pagdung sa langit or sa sky world karon kay kuan papabrihay na gid siya karon mo sa siya. Okay. Proceeding, we tackle about the belief on guarding the dead. Okay. So traditions were set in order to guard the dead during wakes. It is said that the house should be brightly lit with fires, or even okay ra if near the house lang. And also it is said that men should watch the late person for several nights for the reason that there will be a tendency that local sorcerers may touch the coffin and would wickedly get and take advantage of the dead. So see, we still adapted this tradition or belief during the Spanish period, even up to these days, no, whenever there are wakes, mostly we still perform this particular tradition. Yeah. We guard the dead. We never know there should be the one who will guard it always. Dapat walay matug, nga kanan tao matug, because we should guard the dead because of this tradition. Okay. Lastly, we go to the Filipinos' belief regarding the mourning of the dead. For the mourning, Filipinos should consider laraw. It is a rule which requires that generally when someone dies, regardless of being a chief, timawa, or slave, so slave except when religious, only a chief, all must mourn before him or her and must observe some restrictions. So the following are some of the rules during the morning or the laro itself when called. Okay, there should be no quarreling. Spears and daggers should be properly and carefully used, diba? Because it is said nga it is very dangerous to use sharp objects during burials or during mourning, diba? Okay, and colored dresses or clothes are avoided, like black and white, like still what we normally or commonly believe up until these days. And then there should be strict silence. And there should also be an enclosed area for the wake. Okay, it must always be put in mind that failure to do this should have duly compensated for the act or should have made that violator the owner's or his or her ayaway. So, kung sa maning ayaway? Ayaway is a slave or a servant for personal matters. In other words, mahimo siyang katabang or alalay. Okay, so these are the links where I scanned and skimmed for the topic. It's just the links that I used. And that is the end of my report. To sum it up, there are certain beliefs, customs, and traditions that we still practice up to these days. And there are also mostly that are not already brought into life. And truly, the Filipino history is an exemplary art of yesterday, today, and tomorrow that deserves to be known by all. That's all. Thank you for listening and stay safe, everyone. God bless.